Okay, so let's talk about built-in functions which you can use on strings. So now it finally gets even more interesting than with logical operators, because now finally something will be happening. Finally, we will be changing the strings. We will be doing something with them. So basically, you have already seen how we can use built-in functions with strings. So we have already used print or len to get some understanding about a specific string. But there are many more functions which you can use on strings, and most of them are hidden in the strings themselves. So what I have in mind is called a method. A method is a function, like it works exactly the same as a function, but it's kind of assigned as a feature to an object. You might have already used methods before and heard about this. Right now, I just want to emphasize what's going on. You will learn more about this when we will be discussing objects and classes, but already now it's a good time to understand this concept. So let's jump into Visual Studio and let's open inline mode. And as you know, function like len, we can just use it like this, that you write a function name, and for instance inside we input some word. So let's write course inside, and then function len will return a result. So in this case, this is the number of elements of this string. However, there are some methods, there are some functions which are in this case called methods, which you cannot use just like that. You cannot just, for instance, there is a method called capitalize, which you cannot just use on a string like this or on anything else. Python doesn't know what capitalize is if you just try to use it like this, because there does not exist a general concept, general function which is called capitalize in Python. However, there is a concept of capitalizing a string. If you have a string, you can capitalize this. That's why these functions are not stored, like are not accessible in general everywhere in Python. They are accessible through an object which they concern. So for instance, if I have, sorry, not capitalized, but if I have a string course, as before, I can access functions which are specific to strings by simply writing dot and then the name of the method. So for instance, if I want to use a method capitalize, then I can do it this way. And then, since this is a function, I still have to use brackets. And then if this function requires some additional arguments, then you input arguments inside. One argument to this function is provided by default, and this argument is this. So the object which we used to actually find this function. So this object, this in this case string, is provided by default to this method. And we can run this code to see that what happens is Python capitalizes capitalizes the string, so basically makes the first letter of the string an uppercase letter. One thing you have to keep in mind here when you are dealing with methods on strings is that these methods do not change the string itself. We can see it if more clearly what I have in mind if we create a variable x which contains a string course inside. Since variable x contains the string, we can use the capitalize method on it, run it, and as a result get the capitalized string. However, if I check what is inside my variable x now, we can see that it's still coarse string with the first letter in the as a lowercase letter. So using this method is the same as using a function. It returns a result, but if it's not written inside the function, that it modifies the current variable, the current object, and since strings, as we already discussed, are immutable, this method cannot change anything inside the string we used to find this method. The result is just prepared by Python, and if we want to store it somewhere, then we have to do it explicitly. So for instance, we could write code which says, okay, store the result of capitalize method in variable y, and then if we check what is in variable y, then we will see that it's the capitalized string course. Of course, as always, we can store the result in the same variable we have used to generate the new result, and then if we check the contents of the variable, then the x variable has changed. But remember, this is, again, I will repeat myself, but this is the same situation like with numbers. X is equal to 3 right now. If I'm replacing the contents of variable x with number 5, the contents of the variable change, because I have erased everything which was inside and I have put something else in it, but the number 3 hasn't changed itself. The number 5 hasn't changed itself, and this is exactly what happens here. I have a string course with lowercase letter in front. I run a function. This function generates a new string. So this is a new string, course with uppercase letter in front. And then I erase everything which was in my variable x. So I erase whatever was there, I erased from there, and I put new result inside. It's not that the string itself has changed. The string itself still is the same as before. It starts with a lowercase letter. We just generated new string, and we removed this string from our variable and have put new string inside instead. So this is what happens. And this is what you should ponder about, I guess, for a minute to understand how it works better. So we provided a summary both on the course website as well as an example script for you, where you can check out various methods you can find on strings. And you have not only capitalize, but for instance, you have method count, which counts how many times a specific letter is present in a word. So for instance, if we write abracadabra and use a method count a on it, we will see that a is present 5 times in this string. So as I said, this argument is provided by default to any method which you are using, and then here you can provide any additional arguments which this method needs. Here everything works exactly the same like with functions. Yeah, so here is an overview of some most important methods. We also on the website we also provide you with a link to the Python documentation, where you can find a detailed description of these methods, or even some more methods. You can also search the internet for some additional resources. Try them out, try to understand how they work, compare this with example script we have prepared for you, and try to figure out how methods work on Python, and then you will have a big tool set of functions and methods which you can use on strings. Okay, so hopefully this got more interesting than just going through strings, indices, and stuff like this. Hopefully now you feel that you can do much more with strings, and that's all about string methods and functions. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next video.